Hey guys, sorry about that on the live here. Has the market turned into a bearish bonanza or a bullish bonanza? We're going to dive into that today for you guys. There's a few reports out that start to indicate some interesting scenarios that may be playing out from the institutional side of things. So we'll dive in deep. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. Well, before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital. If you're looking at long-term holding of your crypto assets, and especially from an IRA standpoint, this is one of the places to do it. You can go to their website. It's pretty simple. You can invest in crypto, gold, silver, all using your IRA. There's a lot there that you can do. You can transfer your existing IRA. You can start a new one. And the cool thing is that there's no fees on you starting an account. You simply just pay for fees if you're managing your own trades within your account. So that's kind of the extent of what you can do. You can do some staking on there. Tons of opportunities, very much like kind of a mini exchange. 6.5 billion in transactions, 190,000 accounts created. Make sure and use our link down below because it's going to give you a $100 funding reward when you start an account. So make sure and check that out. It does help the channel. All right, so let's get into a couple of news items here. I want to jump over to a few things that we're looking at right now because Bitcoin has still been very resilient around the 23K. We will be doing an update for you guys this week. We'll have our altcoin show, a lot of other things coming on the show this week, as well as some stuff late in the week around Super Bowl. So we got a big week planned for you. Stock market news now, really around what stocks are doing in terms of them falling, especially around looking at what the Fed's rate path might look like after last week's Friday's employment numbers. And again, employment numbers were up. Many people look at that. Okay, well, that could be bearish because of the fact that the Fed will look at this and say, we're continuing to climb. The job demand is still here. The likelihood of the economy not slowing in the point that they wanted to get to. And I think even Chair Powell from last week's FOMC may have been a little bit, surprised around where this might go. So I would love to get you guys' feedback. Do you feel like the results from Powell's remarks last week versus what we saw in terms of the job numbers changes your vision of what's going to happen within the markets, at least in the short term? Or do you feel like we're still in a potential bull cycle and small bull cycle around Bitcoin? Love to get your insights. Another thing that was interesting here was the Bloomberg strategist. Real recession has arrived, predicts a massive milestone around things. We've got this Bloomberg report that we'll get into. And if we now have another real recession, comparable outcome or technological breakthrough could be seen. That's something that Mike McGlone is kind of focusing in on. Could be facing their first real recession. This is the scenario that many people are still looking at, is that there still is a recession ahead of us in the next few months. The likelihood, because of what we're seeing with the Fed. Again, remember, Fed will start slowing knowing the data is coming in, usually in a late, period, which then causes that reactive measure after the Fed even pivots that we usually see a downtrend in securities market. Now, back to my point that we've talked about here on the show a lot, is when a downtrend in the security markets start to occur, crypto is typically the first one out of those kinds of things. So it does offer up an idea, or at least a theory, that we could see some adjustments here. But McGlone basically said, hey, listen, the last significant U.S. economic contraction, the financial crisis, led to a birth of Bitcoin, and the possible coming economic reset may mark similar milestones, again, around digital assets and what that might look like, which leads back into the reports we'll show you guys a little bit later in the video. Macro Alf, which I think has been one of the more bearish guys out there in terms of the analysts staying true to his bearish position. Is this perfect time to buy garbage assets? Said nobody. Growth is unequivocally slowing down pretty hard. I would agree with that. And then risk-free rates are going to 5%, which this is going to be interesting too, as we continue to see increases on where a lot of banks and also a lot of these asset-controlled facilities are offering more for cash. So opportunity. The Fed doesn't have your back. Remember that. Yet people are busy pushing garbage assets to the moon, which is, listen, these are the kind of scenarios that play out in these kind of, whether you want to call them bull traps or not. The point is that you see these little moves in and out. Likelihood, are we still in a bullish trend? Bitcoin holding at 23, still very solid. And then a lot of these assets that have been moving in this direction that are more long-term holds, and that's everything from Matic to Render and things of that nature, still very active right now, which I think aligns a little bit with where Alpha is talking about. Here was another tweet. I've already shown that this cycle is different. Bulls compare it to 2015 and bears 2019 bottoms. If there is a death cross on the weekly chart, then we might get a different bottom. This will be interesting because a lot of people have been pushing that we have already seen the bottom. And if that is not the case, if we do see a full-on retrace and reset within the digital asset space, Bitcoin could see some potential max pain coming in this area. So again, I don't know. I mean, again, our what we've looked at is around the 14.5. I know Gareth is still holding that there is a potential lower position on Bitcoin. I think a lot of this will still boil down to how the media responds to the results of a recession when we get the full trigger. And that, I think, will be the scenario that the Fed obviously will play into as they start to adjust on everything from interest rates as well as being able to pull back possibly in a pivot in the essence of just going back to basis points drops. So we'll see. One thing, though, that will continue to be very bullish is these additional partners. And this is another thing that I always wonder when you see a lot of enterprise companies starting to strategically align. It's not necessarily that they know something, but it's a point in which they understand a roadmap and how it works. Visa is a good example, now testing how to accept settlement payments in USDC on Ethereum. So again, if we see something like Visa and or others that start to lean into what we're going to see here in terms of not only adoption, but use case and utility within crypto and blockchain, this could really start to spin things into a very interesting way. This report right here, let me kind of zoom in on this a little bit so you can kind of see a little bit about it. So this is a Bloomberg intelligence report, Crypto Outlook. I don't like the title. Bottoms are rarely easy. But there's a few pages in here. And again, when we do these chop ups for you guys, hopefully it gives you a little bit of insight on some things that we're looking at inside the report. So there's a few pages that I want to get to. Here's page 4. And let me show you a couple of things. One of the things that they focus on, and it's a good read, it's worth it for you guys to spend some time with it. But you'll notice they're showing some tendency for crypto stock ratios direction to coincide with federal funds rate. That's an expectation. It may be a while before Bitcoin and NASDAQ get to a 4x. So this goes back into, let me zoom up on that a little bit for you guys. And we'll zoom there. Yeah. 4x. And then further into what they talk about, Ethereum is more likely to resume doing what it has been doing, which has been outperforming. And again, that gets back to some interesting points around what asset should you hold in this next cycle. Is it Bitcoin? Is it Ethereum? Are there some new assets? I think there's going to be some assets out there that could really kind of change, be that life-changing money that a lot of people are looking forward into. Again, not investment advice, but we look at mainly sentiment and research here. Here's another area that I wanted to focus in on right here. Why Ethereum needs a layer 2 solutions. L2s have stepped in to enhance the user experience, stop the flow of users to alternative layer 1 change such as Solana and Avalanche. This is a big deal because Polygon will be a big one, as will be Arbitrum, Optimism, etc. And this is something that I think we'll continue to see growth on. And there's a lot happening around that. If you guys saw the Dorito launch today, I think I tweeted out, a couple of guys had it out there. But Dorito has done a major move in unison with Polygon and Artifact, and obviously we know the connection there with Nike. This gets into some very interesting strategic brand moves. And this gets back to my point around Web3 businesses and Web2 businesses start to understand how Web3 business is going to be done. Those are the businesses, I think, that will really start to set the framework and bring in a lot of additional, companies that will start to kind of chase what other high-level companies are doing from a competitive standpoint. A couple of things else in this report. L2 chains are faster, 90% less expensive than transacting on Ethereum itself, which we'll go into in a minute. Layer 2 activity eclipses that on the base chain. As mentioned in the note in October, the emergence of several 100,000 new users on the L2 chains. This all we know, again, from the ZK proofs that we've seen around Polygon and all that. check out our video with Polygon, because we had the ZK team, the Zero Knowledge team, here on the show. And it was a good conversation because there's a lot happening within it. The big question I had with them was scalability. And is Polygon prepped for what the scalability issue could be as we see mass adoption possibly occurring on layer 2s? So that's another big factor here. Another point right here was another page in here. Blockbuster corporate partnerships. This is the first time I've really seen Polygon mentioned in a big report like this. And of course, you guys know this because we talk about it so much, but it just shows the 10 partnerships there with Polygon, DraftKings, Reddit, Stripe, etc., Walt Disney, Adidas, Starbucks, Adobe, Meta, and so on. I mean, we've shown this chart before. The other thing, remember, let's not forget, is the developers. And if we continue to see growth in this area on these L2s, these are going to become very interesting going forward. Some of the L1s will be, and I'm always watching what Avalanche is doing just because of some of the innovation that's going on there. I do think that one's got a potential out there. Here's further into the Bloomberg report right here. 24 billion assets to accelerate upon the upgrade. Demand, obviously, for the Ethereum could spike. And this is mainly talking about the economics and the supply crunch, which is going to come in on EIP 4895. One of the things, though, is that the total value that is staked right now, it's very steady. Even though there is a lot of people worried about, Shanghai and what that might look like. If you're new to crypto, we're probably speaking a lot of terms here that are a little crazy. In essence, there's a lot of ETH locked up and possibly will eventually start to move out of being locked up, which many people are concerned that might devalue ETH because of a potential sale. The other aspect on that is a little different. Remember that the merge happened in September 2022, and Ethereum staked had reached 13 million, 20 billion, illustrating the community's growing confidence in the viability. And that's where I think this goes, is I think we see Ethereum continue to hold a very solid position. Now, sure, there will be selling, there will be those kind of scenarios that play into this, but I think it might actually increase the opportunity. They talk about this in the report, and let me kind of get to that right there. There we go. 48.95 could spur staking demand, although exit liquidity will be available to stakers for the first time. The introduction of LSDs and Ethereum really could be favorable for staking economics. Should see this ratio and the alternative layer 1 start to narrow substantially. This will be a question mark as to whether or not we see that. Ethereum, though, as you guys know, has been moving up the chart for me in terms of the hold position. It repositioned in front of Polygon, mainly because of my exit on Polygon, or part of my exit on Polygon. But I'm holding ETH in a large position now. Again, not ahead of Bitcoin yet, but I am looking at some scenarios on that. We're probably going to do a portfolio update video for you guys, so we'll get to that. Don't forget to drop some questions in over on the side. And the other thing, if you like these breakdowns and these reports, smash the like button right now. That's one of the ways you can really help us out. Further into this report, let's see, what else did they have? Let's go further in. I think that was pretty much it on this one. Yeah, that was pretty much it on this one. There was another report that I wanted to jump to, which is the Fidelity report. Now, this one is the 2023 look ahead. Now, I know this research was all happening, but it feels like Wall Street is almost in unison step right now. You've got Fidelity, Bloomberg, and remember, ARK Invest did their big drop of their 2023 outlook. I'll show you a clip on it. We did a big video on this on Friday. No, it was Saturday when we dropped that video. Thanks for watching that video, by the way. It did really well. But I think the point is that a lot of the innovation, it was a 150-page report. We broke it down into maybe 10 pages, 15 pages of real interesting stuff for you. Go check that video out. But this report right here, they all seem to coincide with what's happening and what Cathie Wood believes is going to be happening in blockchain. Let me zoom up on this one for you guys. So this was a little bit of an interesting aspect in the report. Bitcoin active addresses stood at 333 million in 22, which is a decline of almost 8% from the previous year. Again, we know 22 was a tough year. But it's resilient, in their opinion, giving a price drop of almost 65%. That's the other thing that I think people are looking at, is just the potential for how strong Bitcoin continues to be. And I think this is the thing that we'll look at further into the report. This was interesting right here, and I want to just show you this quickly. This was the L1 versus L2 daily transaction. I mean, look at Arbitrum right there. That's the green chart. You see Optimism right there in the gray, and Ethereum Layer 1 starting to go down. So you see these merges starting to occur and swapping in terms of people starting to understand how to utilize these. And what that simply means is the opportunity for dApps to continue to build on this and make it even more simple for a lot of new people coming into the space, buying assets, getting in down fees, all the things that will happen in these layer 2s that I think will be very valuable. Further into that report, let me see what else we had in there. There's a few things in here that were pretty interesting. Here's one right here. This is, okay, so the regulatory environment also made an overlap between traditional securities migrating on-chain. It's kind of a difficult one, but we think that might shift in 2023. Now, that's a good sign in the sense that you've got Fidelity that believes that we may see some regulatory environment shifting. And then after a year of major cross-chain hacks and exploits, will bridges die off? Now, I know that's a big statement because I would say, well, if that were to happen, it would kind of de-escalate crypto all in itself, because that's essentially what is happening right now with crypto, is decentralization is starting to really become. But in their opinion, it's not likely, because the value of being able to move tokens between chains is great and will continue to be needed for. And I think that's going to be the scenario. The multi-chain world is a reality, and I think the scenario that we're going to see in not only the traditional investment classes, including banks, starting to understand how this works, will be, now it's going to be early. We're still early, and we're still going to see a lot of growth opportunity in that area around banks in the next few years. But I think we'll see some banks and, of course, some of these traditional companies move into this. I want to jump over to a tweet right here. This was from Glassnode Alerts. Ethereum median gas price just reached a 1-month high. We're back into kind of a high zone right here. Let me pop that chart out for you guys. Now, what does that mean? Is that a bad thing, a good thing? I think the scenario that this is playing right now with Ethereum is we're starting to see some adjustment again, traffic on a lot of these L2s, and we're starting to see ETH in itself just become such a dominant force that this in itself, I think, is again, just something that will continue to play along with these ebbs and flows in the market, which is what we're seeing right now when ETH is up around $1,600 to $1,700. Here's ultrasound money, another all-time low on deflationary aspects. Remember, 140 days since the merge, and you can kind of see right there. Pretty interesting. I don't know if you guys follow Ultrasound Money, the website, but just go to ultrasound.money. You'll be able to get to this. It kind of keeps a track of all the ETH supply, what the position is, what the current supply ratio is, supply growth, the burn ratios, all that is in there, what the issuance could. I mean, it's a really nice little. See what else. That video to breaking that report down last week. We dropped it on Saturday. I wish we'd have dropped it on Friday. But here's a little bit from her, a clip from her video that she did on her report right after we did the video on her report. But let me play this.
You can take a look at our analysis of smart contracts and Ethereum and how the merge is now causing actual deflation in the number in the rate of increase in the number of Ether out there. In other words, right now Bitcoin is inflating at roughly, I think, 1.7%. So the supply 1.7% per year as it moves towards its mathematically metered 21 million units. And Ether, I think, has just moved into a decline in Ether. That's quite a robust statement right there. And we do see smart contracts, fees generated by smart contracts, moving from 11 billion, so nascent last year, with DeFi a part of it, NFTs as well. 11 billion last year to 450 billion by 2030. And then we get into the genomics, and we now call it multiomics part of the presentation. We go through precision therapies.
They get into a lot of different, advanced technologies, but obviously smart contracts, blockchain in general, was really one of the core, kind of their top line of some of the opportunity. You heard her talk about Ethereum and the deflationary positioning. I think, this is someone that, understands it, maybe doesn't dive into it as much as we do here on our channel, and obviously you guys that are watching. But you get that. You understand why Ethereum has such a very interesting proposition and its potential here. And again, it goes back to what I've always said. Web 2 to Web 3 business adoption, whatever happens in that process for utility wins. Without a doubt, will win. And that's why the scenario that we saw with Starbucks, what we'll most likely we see with McDonald's, what we're seeing with Doritos. Notice anything here? You obviously see the artifact Nike as the poster child, and the utility aspect of many of these Goliath brands that will start to seep into these secondary markets and eventually into Main Street. And that's when I think you see, this is years away, but it is a point in which we saw adoption in mobile, adoption in social, adoption in internet. It's just, the cycles are here, guys. You just follow the tech cycles, you'll be fine to get into that. So interesting stuff out there for sure. I'm going to jump to a couple of charts here, just where Bitcoin is right now as it's holding out right at 23,000. We did see a little bit of movement here over the weekend. Remember, if you're not in our CPI, get in there, because it's really a great tool for understanding some of the movement that you've got with Bitcoin. Bitcoin holding at 23. Remember, Bitcoin had been a little bit flat on last week. We saw a very small spike above 20. I think it was right at 24, and then an adjustment down. And then again this morning also, and I think I did, we dropped on our Diamond Circle, which is our Substack, both on the premium and the free. I dropped a piece in there that I think you guys would like, which is kind of talking about where Bitcoin's potential was. I think it was over the weekend, and mostly on a sideways position. So we'll definitely get into some questions here, and I'll pull up charts and we'll get into some sentiment. And let me look at Ethereum real quick. Again, Ethereum, let me go zoom up on that and move out a little bit because I'm on the 1 hour probably. Yep. Let's go to the 4. There we go. All right, so you see a little bit happening here on the morning for Ethereum as it starts to edge up slightly, but it hasn't necessarily come in there in that $1,680 to almost $1,700 range, which it was pushing to reclaim. Interesting to see that if it holds this, because this has been a resistance area around 1650. So we'll see if this one can break through. Sentiment right now on ETH is still showing sideways. So definitely a good one. Let's go over to the poll for the day. And what do we have? All right, so what will outperform Bitcoin in 2023? Layer 2, Polygon, 33%. ETH at 30. And then nothing. I like the mix of the audience here, because you got some Bitcoin people in there, you've got the ADA fans in there, you've got layer 1s, all that good stuff. Good deal. Layer 2s going crazy. I love it, guys. It's always good to see how you guys perceive the markets for sure. I will jump into a couple of questions here and then maybe show you guys some sentiment here. Sorry, I'm trying to get logged in here. I forgot to get logged into CPI. All right, so Render is going crazy. Anthony Richardson, yes. So this is a very interesting trade right now. It's one of our swing bags that we've been holding for some time back from our early portfolio this year. And one thing that is happening within Render is, remember, this is still a very long-term aspect of where it's going. But one thing, I'm going to go to the dashboard real quick and just go over to the Metaverse tokens and go over to Render, because this is one that we did an analysis on this morning. And if you're in, again, if you're in the Diamond Circle, you get this. But right here, notice Render, first of all, intersected the overall market, so it's been flying. It's still one of the top-rated tokens out there. Let me zoom up on that for a minute. Still one of the top-rated tokens, but the difference is the ascent rate has started to slow, and that is exactly what could be happening if you think about over here on Render. Let's go down to Render real quick, and right there. Okay, so This ascent rate, right now we're anticipating maybe a little bit of sideways action, maybe a possible buy zone if it retraces back down here into the 160 range. That might be another entry. These are buy zones that we've looked at, entry points for a render all the way back to Jan 6, which is when we entered into our first trade on render before it started taking its run up. And that's about 300% markup, which we've sold half that bag. We're still holding on the rest of that bag. But I'm still interested in where this might go. Now, does this have, because remember, now we're dealing with all-time highs with render. So good one there. Yes, Daniel, I think we're still in disbelief stage of the market cycle. I would agree. I think a lot of people are still looking at, if you look at the bullish side of the market, we try to present both bearish and the bullish. The bullish side of the market, I'm finding more people that were on the bearish side that are flipping bullish right now than I am on the vice versa. So I still see the traditional bulls. I'd love to get the bull twins back on. We got to bring those guys back on because they're kind of in the scenario with Alf. If you think about, and Darius Dale too. I mean, Macro 42 is still very bearish on what's happening. Bitcoin 25 key, you can be sure we'll see the biggest bull market ever. I don't know. I don't think if it hits 25, that's definitely a marker, but I don't know that you could not see a pullback. Now, could it pull back to 18 or somewhere like that? Sure. Those are the kind of scenarios that may play into this. So interesting. All right. Dominic comes in and says, hey, Paul, when do you see domain names and the Web3 taking off? Probably around 2025 or 6. We'll see early adoption happen. But the key will be if someone hits a home run on the utility use case of Web3 domain usage, whether it's a .nft for integration or an ENS name server kind of scenario for ETH. I think it's utility. You've got to have utility and use cases played into this, especially if digital ID can start to take place within the social mechanisms around that. If you look at Nostra and Damus, what they've done and what they're trying to do, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I still think it's a couple more years before we'll really see that. Will we see another short squeeze? Could very possibly, play into this. We're gonna get Gareth back on the channel. We've got him at a specified date for why we think there may be some activity in the market, and see how Gareth is trading that. And of course, we'll have several additional traders coming on the market. We've got a guy coming on that's going to be looking at some new indicators that we're testing. We've got, of course, Evan Aldo coming on. We'll do the altcoin show for you guys as well. Everyone knows it's XRP that will outperform Bitcoin. I mean, there's enough pent-up demand there, that's for sure. Yeah. Are we still on the 14K? Yeah, so that is a good one, Saz. You're paying attention to our channel because that's been our low, was the 14.5. We felt like the 14.5 was the number. Now, we hit the 15.8. Maybe that was it. Or could we see a retracement? That's the real question mark that everybody's looking at right now, because everybody's playing Bitcoin pretty close to the chart right now, pretty close to the chart. And if you look at, let me go over to the CPI, and we'll take a look quickly at the Bitcoin. Let me go to the dashboard real quick and get to top crypto. And Bitcoin. Let's paint those charts up for you guys. And here it comes. Yeah, all right. So you can kind of see there's a little bit of a fall off right here. Overall market is dipping right now. We've seen, and there's just a handful of tokens that have been able to kind of sustain. But still, this is a high. You look back here, overall market was at 61 on the 16th of January, just 3 weeks ago. And now we're sitting at a 60. So literally back where we were to a little bit, but still Bitcoin performing above overall market. But it is slowing, and we're starting to see a little bit of dip. So I anticipate we're going to see some sideways action here on Bitcoin over the next few days. Maybe a potential push here in a little bit, because it's still, amplification is not falling off. If you look at 63.82, 63.51, I mean, it's just sideways right here. So we could see a little bit of a bump right here coming in. It's going to be a good one. All right, so we'll try to get into more projects for you guys. Make sure and leave some comments down below. We always love your input. If you're not your input, if you're not part of the Diamond Circle, like I said, just jump in. It's really easy. click the link down below. If you guys want to reach me, it is out there on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechBath.